This is Ron's blog, Aquarian Awakening, and we had a viewer ask what the origin of the astrological symbols, where it originated, where it came from. So I just want to show you what that's about. There's only 3 symbols that make up all the planetary symbols, and that's the circle, the crescent, and the cross. Okay, the circle is the conscious mind. Okay, it's what it essentially represents. The crescent is the subconscious, and the cross is the body, the 5 senses, if you will. So this is the projective masculine, and this is receptive feminine. This is also represents the soul, and this represents the spirit. In the scriptural times, the scripture says, Mary said this. She said, "My spirit rejoiceth in God, but my soul doth magnify Him." And the magnification is the soul. That's what gives life to the seeds that are imparted into it by the Spirit. So whatever we sow in here, we reap in our physical form. So it's the early Christians, Christ was called the Word made flesh. We're all the Word made flesh. If you plant the seeds in here, you're going to get the results in your flesh or in your external environment, which is your world of matter. And that all is subject to what's planted in this. So the scripture says, seeing you purified your soul, this is the soul, okay? The old days they called the spirit nephesh, and they called this ruach. Okay, they were 2 different things. So, seeing you purified your soul in the disciplining of your spirit, in the unfeigned love of your brother. In other words, by loving others, you purify your soul. But you can't love others unless you love yourself first. So that's the prerequisite to loving others. So what we have here is the conscious, the subconscious in the body, the projective masculine, receptive feminine. We have the will, if you would. Okay, and we have the feelings and emotions over here. Okay, and what the soul relates to, the subconscious relates to most, is the emotions, the feelings. It's like a good woman; it relates to feelings, to emotion. It's not rational as the spirit would be more rational, which is much more conscious and projective and thinks it's always in control. Actually, the subconscious controls more than the conscious does. The conscious, the willful, masculine spirit always wants to feel like it's in control. It's like a good woman that's constantly suggesting things to her husband. The husband thinks it's his idea all along, but exactly the subconscious has been pouring into the conscious these suggestions all along. So the spirit, the soul, the body, that's how these things work. This is the crucified one. And in astrology, if you look at all the symbols, are made up of those things. You got the circle with a dot in it. That means spirit is made manifest as we come a central point. We have the moon, it's a double crescent. We have Venus, we have the circle over the cross. Mars is the very opposite. We use an arrow, but it's really a cross over the circle. And in this case, we have Venus saying, let's put love first above the flesh and desires. Mars is the opposite of that. The cross is up here, so it's saying, let's put our feelings, let's put our carnal self first above the spirit. Venus is saying, no. Let's put our love first. If you look at Jupiter, it's the crescent over the cross. Saturn is the very opposite of that. It's the cross over the crescent. So here at Jupiter, we see that the soul or feelings and compassion rule the cross. If you look at Saturn, Saturn has no feelings. It's suppressed by the physical form. So it's cold and heartless, and that's kind of what Saturn is. Saturn is not, it's very super rational and controlling of the soul. And so when we have a soul that's defiled, or it's kind of like Rosemary's Baby, where we see a child doing something that is absolutely possessed, that's where we see Saturn's energy, where the soul is subverted by the world and the senses. And all the planets are that way. Neptune is the crescent, which is this feeling, souls being pierced by the cross. So it's a sign of sorrow, sadness, and self-imposed solitude, like a monk or a nun. That's Neptune rules all these things. Rules delusions and illusions and other things. And then we have Uranus, of course, which is the two ears, if you would, the soul listening out here, and we have the cross here. And then we have spirit on the bottom. The most spiritual of all the planets, interestingly enough, and Edgar Casey called it the planet of Christ consciousness, is Pluto. Pluto is the crescent with a circle in it and a cross below. And he called that the planet of Christ consciousness. It's interesting because the actual symbol that we should be using is this one. I've seen a lot of astrologers use this one, but it's not correct. The interesting thing about this is the spirit's not even tainted or touched by the soul. The spirit's resurrected above the soul and the body. So it's, as I said, it's probably the most spiritual of all the planets, although it's generally recognized as something more dealing with Hades and underworld and sex and all those things. It's also the most spiritual of all the planets. So that's my little blog for the day. I hope this has been enlightening and somewhat informative for you. And we'll see you another day.